Well, hello writers. Welcome to episode number 248 of How Do You Write? Today I am talking to Patti Callahan. I know you're going to enjoy the interview. We are talking about how to know what your characters want. And for me, this is always one of the bigger challenges about writing my books. It takes me a while to really know what my characters want. I can come up with a great idea, but as I write, things always change, and I always forget that my characters have wants that are different than, Rachael Herron's on a general day. So that is something I always have to work on in revising a lot. So it was fun to talk to her about this. I know you're going to enjoy that. What is going on around here? Well, I am, if you are watching on the YouTube, I'm in a new spot. I'm in a co-working spot in Idaho. We're here for 1 week seeing my wife's family, and it has been awesome and challenging. A lot of family in the house. I think we have 8 people in the house now. 6 of us sharing one bathroom. But it is a house full of love, and it is really wonderful. Yesterday, Lala and I, there were only 3 of us who wanted to raft down the Boise River, and what that means is actually just kind of like tubing down the river. It's a very slow, very cold, very shallow river at this point. I kept throwing myself in the river, but I would whack my knees on the rocks, at the boulders at the bottom of the river, because it was so shallow, but I really wanted to cool off. And it was just me and Lala and our 12-year-old nephew who ended up wanting to go, and it was so fun. It was a moment of remembering that when I want to, I get to let go of control. And I am kind of a control freak. You all know that in so many ways. And so, of course, I started out the day. We want to be in the ideal position in the river. We want to be ahead of those people and behind those people. I don't want to hear them talk. I don't want to have conversation with these strangers on the river. So let's, fight our way there. And eventually, I ended up giving my paddle to the 12-year-old nephew, and he became the best river guide. And it didn't matter when we crashed into trees and the banks of the river. It didn't matter. It was just fun. I just got to hang out in the middle of the boat in the 96-degree weather, repeatedly throwing myself into the snow water and then climbing back up onto the boat. There was this one brilliant moment that I will share with you. Every once in a while, the river would speed up, and we would have like these tiny little rapids, which were very fun to scream as we went over. And the eddies would swirl and the water would get a little rougher. And I had put myself in the water, and I was, the boat was towing me because it was a little bit deeper there, and it was a little bit faster, and it was exciting. And then I realized it was getting shallower, but really choppy. And I was getting banged around on the rocks. If I had stood up, it could not have been higher than my thigh, really. But kind of freaked me out, and I wanted in the boat. I couldn't get in the boat because now the boat is going really fast, and I'm having a very hard time hanging on to it. Everybody in the boat, all Lala and Isaac, they're busy. They're busy doing other things, but I needed somebody to help me up. And I was really terrified in this delicious adrenaline, this is life or death, must get back on the boat, screaming. Lala's trying to haul me up. My nephew hits me in the head with the paddle, which was hilarious. And I managed to get on board gasping, and I'm lying in the bottom of the boat gasping and howling with laughter because the adrenaline pumping in my system said that, yeah, you almost just died. And reality said that had I let go of the boat and stood up and walked to shore, it would have been just fine, and they would have pulled the boat over, and I would have either walked down the river to them or swum if I could, but I was not deep enough really to swim. So it was just this really delicious moment of fear that was laced with 100% knowledge that I was completely fine. And it was just so great. So we're having adventures like that. And the reason I'm telling you about that is that I was writing this morning, and I was beating myself up for not doing more writing while we're here, while the house is full of 8 people. And I can only use this co-working space for a little bit of time at a time because it's expensive. And for the last few days, I've been trying to get work done in the house, and I am interrupted all the time by people who love me, who want to talk about things. And I just had the major revelation, of course, the realization that I should have had a few days ago, which is it is okay. I am not going to be the most productive writer for the next 9 days. We're in this country for 9 more days. We are going on a big tour of, after we leave Idaho, going around California, seeing people and saying goodbye to them. I'm not going to get that much work done on my current projects. I have a couple that I'm really, really invested in working on, and I'm letting that go. I'm going to call this maybe like a little vacation. And for this workaholic, that is hard to do. There are some things there. I'm just going to ask myself to keep on top of a few things. My email, which is hard for me to do, but I put on the vacation responder that says I'm moving to a different country. Responses will be delayed, and that helps me feel better. And I'm going to keep on top of the 2 classes that I'm teaching because that's easy and fun, and I love doing that. And I'm going to try to keep on top of my Slack messages, and everything else I'm going to let go. I just thought I probably will not be able to do a podcast next week. I might do a mini podcast Q&A because I've got a couple of questions from Darling Maggie, which is a song. And I might do that and put that out next week. But I might also miss a week in here in the next few weeks, and that's okay. We have to adjust with life. And I, personally, I like to talk to you all a lot, but right now I'm talking to myself. I have to take a moment and chill out and enjoy this exciting moment in our lives. This enjoy embarking upon this adventure, which we are already in the middle of. So that's what I'm doing. I'm giving myself that permission. What kind of permission do you want to give yourself, or do you need to give yourself? Do you need to give yourself the permission to push yourself to write a little bit more than you are doing? Or do you need to give yourself permission to write a little bit less than you are trying to make yourself do? Where are you in your life and in your capacity to get your work done? There are times in our lives where it is easier to get more work done and when it is harder. If you are spending all your time watching Netflix and TikTok, that's a different conversation. That is time you could be spending writing. However, if you're just busy living, moving, grieving, whatever it is, be kind to yourself. You have to be kind to yourself as a writer in order to do this really difficult work. I think that if I have one rallying cry, one mantra, when I am talking to writers, it is that, to be kind to yourself and be honest. With my students, I always talk about how I am always 2 things. I am always kind and I am always honest. Those 2 things go together perfectly, beautifully. We can be kind to others and we can be honest to others, and we really importantly have to be those things with ourselves. I don't know about you, but I'm very good at lying to myself. And I lie about all sorts of things to myself. You know, I'm going to get more work done tomorrow, or it's really important that I get this done today. And those are sometimes just big lies that I get to uncover and say, no, it's really okay if I take today off. Or conversely, no, you're really slacking, Rachel. That is actually slacking that you're doing. That's not resting, that's slacking. So why don't you do 1 Pomodoro? Get that done. And then, of course, that usually leads to more. But I'm letting myself off the hook. I'm not doing Pomodoros for at least the next 9 days, or until tomorrow morning when I panic and forget this resolution, and hopefully remember it. And besides, tomorrow morning, I'm going for a swim at the Y with my father-in-law. Then I'm going to go get a pedicure with 4 of my family members. And then we're going to go down the river again because the family saw that little TikTok video that I made of my nephew boating us down the river while singing a song he was making up at the time in his beautiful voice. We had this little gondolier who learned while we were out there how to steer a boat. You could see his body shifting and assimilating and understanding what happens when you put the oar that way, what happens when you put it that way. And by the end, he was doing all of it, and Lala and I were just relaxing and staring up at the blue sky. So ask yourself where in the river you are, what kind of paddling you should be doing. And I hope that at some point you come back and find me, tell me about it. I am getting ready to send out a Patreon message pretty soon here, so if you're not on my Patreon, you can always check into that. I'll do a little midpoint read of that in a second, but I would like to thank new patrons. Jenny Grant, thank you so much. Appreciate it. Jenny Momsen, it's a Jenny day. Thank you. Miley, editing her pledge up. Thank you, Miley. Irene Schoonwinkle, hello Irene, wonderful to have you. And Diana Ben Aaron, same, wonderful to have you. Claire Liddon edited her pledge up. Thank you. Boy, I love it when you guys do that, because not just for the money. The money is fantastic. Thank you. It supports me in doing this work for you. However, when you edit a pledge up, it just is like this added vote of confidence that you've been around for a while and you're doing that. So I don't know, it warms my heart. And thank you, Tyler. Your pledge just came in. So thank you to everyone at every single level in Patreon. It means the world to me. All right, I'm going to finish up doing some work around here, and then I'm going to take tomorrow off, and the next day, and the next day. And I hope you are very kind and very honest with yourself, wherever you are when you are listening to this. All right, happy writing, my friends. Well, I could not be more pleased to welcome to the show today, Patti Callahan. Hello, Patti.
Hi, I'm so happy to be here.
We were just talking before we got started on air about how our paths had miscrossed and I got sick and you were double booked, and it was so this is perfect timing
I was
today
going to
to
say,
talk to you.
I believe in the right timing, and this is it.
Me too. Let me give you a little bit of an introduction here. Patti Callahan is a New York Times bestselling author and is the recipient of the Harper Lee Award for Distinguished Writer of the Year. She is a frequent speaker at luncheons, book clubs, and women's groups. Surviving Savannah is her most recent novel, which just came out. And she's got another one coming out called Once Upon a Wardrobe, which comes out in a few months after this. And we're recording this in April of 2021. So no matter where you are in time, Patti has a book that has just come out around when you're listening. So Patti, obviously you are prolific, you get your work done. But I can't wait to talk to you about Surviving Savannah too, because it's got some really heavy research involved in it too. Before we go into the research world, how and when do you get your writing done? Oh, I think we broke up just for a little bit there. Oh, there you
write
are.
in the mornings.
Okay, so you're a morning writer.
I'm a morning writer. So when I first started writing, my kids were 5, 3, and 1.
Oh my
And
goodness.
so the only time I could write was the morning, right? Or the middle of the night. And I'm not a middle of the night person. So I would rise at dawn. I would write from before dawn. I would write from 4:30 to 6:30 in the morning. I don't do that anymore. I think that's crazy. But it was what I had. And so it began this morning routine that is now what I do. So I try to keep my mornings blocked off for the writing.
What does your morning routine look like nowadays? What is included in it?
Well, my kids are grown. They don't live at home. Well, they did during the pandemic. That was actually kind of fun. I have one married with a baby, and one in graduate school and one in college. So they were home. But
oh, how fun.
I know, but my routine looks like I rise, I stumble to the coffee pot, I sit down, and I immediately start. Sometimes on my better days, I do my morning pages, which is from The Artist's Way. I'm a big believer in morning pages.
I still do those every day that I can. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, and I can tell, can't you tell when you've gone too long without doing them?
Absolutely.
I can tell. I get a little ungrounded. I rush into my work and make mistakes. So I try to take a little bit of time, even if it's like not the full 3 pages, but half a page, and then I try to dive into my work. I try to ignore the ding of the email and the text messages and the to-dos. And yet at the same time, the earlier I get up, the better I can do that. Yeah. And then I look up and the rest of the world is going. So I try my best to do it that way.
I love that. That is also my perfect way to do it. Although,
yeah, it's
for me,
harder
sometimes
and harder.
It gets, if you glance at email once, you're especially around release when you're doing all the things. I've got a release in 2 weeks as we speak. And
which one comes out in 2 weeks?
Hush Little Baby. Okay. Yeah, I just got the poster in the mail today, actually. So
it looks fantastic.
Thank you.
Yes, and during release, I didn't even try and write. I mean, I'm gentle with myself. If the 2 weeks before or the week during, if I can get to it for a couple minutes and just touch base with it and say, hello, honey, I'm here. I'm not leaving you. Right.
I'll be
Then
back.
I'll be back. I promise. Just like I tell my family,
Yeah.
but yes, in a non-release world, that is the way I like to get it done.
I really like those words that you just said too. I'm gentle with myself. How did you come?
Yeah.
I feel like that's one of the late things we learn as writers. At least for
Yeah.
myself, I can say that I beat myself up for so long, and 15 years into the game, I'm only learning how to be gentle with myself as a
Yes.
writer. How did you learn that, or are you learning that?
I'm learning it all the time. I think, it's a bit in the artist way for sure.
Yeah, that's true.
It is. It's a bit about remembering that it's play. It's our
Yeah.
inner child, she says, who's doing the writing. We use our mental faculties and our craft, to hone it. But if we're whipping ourselves, like
Mhm.
get to work, you haven't done enough, and self-flagellation and trying to, you know, you don't get to go out tonight, like we're the parent.
Yeah.
I don't think that makes and it's not that I don't do it, because I do, but I think it doesn't make for whimsical, creative, deep dive writing. And that's the kind I want to do.
That's really, really beautiful. What is
Thank
your
you.
biggest challenge when it comes to writing?
Time, honestly, even with the pandemic, I
Yeah.
think I I love writing. I love it. So I want to do it. Now I get frustrated and I think I don't know where the story's going, and I, want to pull my hair out and give up and start a different story, but I always want to start something, like I want to work on something.
Yeah.
I love writing. And so um the blessing of having books in the world, as you know, is that you have to spend time on them. You don't throw them into the world and then walk away from them. So it's just like everybody thought you sent your kids off to college and that meant empty nest and all was well. Are you kidding me?
It never ends.
But it's not how it works. It's in fiction. So we have a weekly show and we have a podcast. And so you have to you have to be deliberate. I know you do too, or you wouldn't have a book out in 2 weeks. You have to be deliberate about the time. And I honestly, that's my biggest challenge is honoring the time for that and not checking that first email and then
Yeah.
it's over for the morning.
Yeah. Checking that first dang email.
It's
So
the first one.
I love hearing how much you love writing. What is your biggest joy when it comes to writing?
Oh gosh, it's when it works. I think it's like a drug, right?
Yes, it
It's
is.
what we come back for, right? And it doesn't work all the time, but once in a while it hits and you see a connection, or you find the right word, or you boom, the theme of the novel like
Yeah.
explodes and you're like, that's what this is all about. And those are the moments, once they happen to you, that you come back for. And it might take another year till you have another one of those moments, but they happen. Or you're just driving along and you see the connection that was there all along that you already wrote into the novel, but you didn't see it
Yes.
yet.
I love that. I wish we could go find that. And I was just struck, because I've had dogs for many years, and you know how they teach us about intermittent rewards with dogs. You
Yeah.
don't want to treat them every time they do something right. And I think our books do that too. And that's what keeps us coming back.
Oh,
'Cause
that's so funny.
sometimes we get the dopamine hit, and then most of the time we don't. But every once in a while we get that big blast.
Oh, I love that. Yes, exactly. You're exactly right.
Oh, great. What can you share a craft tip of any sort with us?
Sure. When I get stuck, when I'm frustrated, when I don't know where I'm going, um, aside from technical plot issues, like should I make it, alternating timelines, or should I go chronological? That's not what I'm talking about. But when the story is sledging for me, like
Yeah.
we're in you know how it is. You get to the middle, you've left the shoreline, you can't see the other shoreline, you're in the middle, the storm is coming. Ship metaphors never get old, but it's never.
It's true.
And my book's about a shipwreck, but what does your character want
Mm.
so elementally that you can see it for them. I don't want to know what your character wants vaguely. I don't want to know that they want a love or that I want to know that I'm going to find an example. They imagine themselves standing there while their father brags about them, right?
Oh,
That's a lot different than they want respect.
right.
So the more specific you can get with what your character wants, and it can be as simple as in my book, Surviving Savannah, they want to survive the shipwreck, right? That's what the book is about in the historical parts. Then, of course, their wants grow, after survival. But if you know what they want, then you can, or you're getting a sludgy middle, if you can touch point back to their deepest desires, I think that that's my biggest piece of advice.
It's brilliant. And on a technical level, how do you keep track of what they want? For me, it's one of those things that I'm always in that middle, or I could have even written the whole book. I write such terrible first drafts that I realize,
So do I.
I forgot what they wanted. What do they want? Do you keep track of it somewhere? Do you look at it from time to time?
I do. I didn't used to,
Yeah.
but that's why I'm such an evangelist for this writing tip, is because it has changed the way I write. So I do, and I spend a lot of time on it. I write what they want. I write why they want it. And I'm not big on character sketches like, oh, she has blonde hair and blue eyes and her mom was mean and that they grew up on 507 Merwin Road. Like, I don't do that.
Yeah.
But I do spend a lot of time on what does she want? Why does she want it? Why can't she get it? What are the things she believes about herself that are keeping her from getting it? I write those down. And then I sometimes, not all the time, give them a personality profile from either the ENFP or Enneagram.
I love using the Enneagram.
Yes.
I don't understand it at all. I've never really studied it, but I've just recently got into looking at all of the things and assigning characters to them. Oh, it's so fun.
It's so fun.
Oh, we're a little bit frozen here.
I think we're unfrozen.
Okay, good.
Okay.
Something you said there, super rich and deep. What does the character believe about themselves that is keeping them from getting that goal? That's really rich and juicy.
Yeah. Like, if their mother told them they were unlovable, they are deep down going to believe that, even though the one thing they're wanting is for this one person to love them, right? I mean, that's a very general statement, but yes.
I love stories about mothers and daughters so much. I'll just read any story about mother and daughter, about any kind of love at all.
Maybe
that's a
all
fantastic
stories are about mothers and daughters.
I have a theory that they are. I try to write books that aren't about that, and they all come back.
And
to
they
it.
always
So
end up
they
being
just,
about that.
yeah, exactly. So what thing in your life affects your writing in a surprising way?
I don't know if it's surprising, but sleep. If I have a terrible night's sleep, my brain is sludge. And that's really hard for me. And the whole day I'm thinking, I'm going to get a really good night's sleep so I can write tomorrow, So when you first said that, that's just like bing,
I love
popped
that.
into my head. Yeah.
Are you normally a good sleeper, or is it something you struggle with?
No, I'm normally a good sleeper, although I need a lot of it. So
there's nothing to be ashamed of in that. I find I am smartest after 9 hours of sleep, but I'm a bad sleeper. So to get that is really, really hard.
Yeah. Well, when I have a lot on my mind, just like any normal person,
Yeah. Oh, that's awesome. Okay. So what is the best book you have read recently, and why did you love it?
Oh, wow. So many.
I know. It's always such a hard
I've loved
question.
so many. I don't even know which one to say. Can I pick a few?
Yes.
Okay. So I madly love Paula McLean's new one, which is called When the Stars Go Dark.
Ooh,
Paula is the one who wrote The Paris Wife, and she changed genres, and this is a thriller.
Ooh.
She's a really dear friend of mine, and it was a brave thing to do. And it hit the list this week, and it's really, really good.
Oh, I can't wait.
And I got to read an advanced copy of Chris Bajalian's new one. Comes out in 6 days.
I love
It's called
him.
Hour of the Witch.
Ooh.
Set in Massachusetts in the 1600s.
I am signing myself right up for that one. I'll read anything by him.
So good. And I also just finished on audio The Midnight Library, and
I
I
loved
was
that.
obsessed. I was
Yeah.
like, what's she gonna do? What's she gonna do? What's she gonna do?
He was on the
Where's she gonna
podcast a
end up?
while back, and I was just like,
Oh, was he so
yeah.
interesting?
He's so
Oh, I've
interesting
got
and
to.
so kind and
Mm,
friendly, and I'm still obsessed with that book. I can still feel myself kind of living inside the library.
oh, so
So yeah.
great. And I can tell, and maybe I shouldn't do this, Rachel, but I could tell from that book that he was a soulful, kind
Yes.
person.
Yes. Yes.
Because you can't write with that kind of depth
Yeah.
unless you had been through some things and
Mhm.
knew. I don't want to give anything away, but
Oh, what a
yeah,
wonderful way to put that. I think that's really
I'm
true.
so glad that you
Yeah.
say he was like that. I'm dying to talk
He
to him.
lived
I
up
want to
to
interview
the
him.
hype. Lived up to the hype. But
Okay.
like you are proving, whenever I love a book, I have always had authors live up to their books. I've never had,
Oh,
thank God.
thank
I mean, I've been doing this for
you.
like 4 or 5 years now, and I've never had one person who I hang up and go, oh my God, that was horrible. I'm so disappointed in her and her book now. It's never happened. So
Oh, that's
let's talk
awesome.
about your wonderful book, Surviving Savannah. And I would love it if you would tell us, tell the audience, because I already know it, but tell the audience a little bit about where you got the idea for this book and what this book is about. Let's just lay it on us.
Okay, so what this book is about, plot wise, is the explosion of the steamship Pulaski on June 14th, 1838.
Which I had
It was
never
a
heard of.
crazy. And listen, untold story, lost to time story. That is like catnip to an historical fiction writer. It rings every bell, ding, 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 ding. So when I discovered how untold it was, they called it the Titanic of the South. And when I discovered that in this area I love so much, and where I am, which is in near Savannah, Georgia, and Bluffton, South Carolina, that it had been lost to time. I write about it. The way I found out about it is that a local mariner friend of mine told me about it, but he told me about it 3 times before I finally decided to look into it. And that's because I kept saying the world's stupidest thing. I kept saying, I don't write about shipwrecks.
Oh my
Like I
goodness.
had this preconceived idea you had to be like Nathaniel Philbrick to write
Yeah.
about shipwrecks, right? And so then I started looking into the families, and I was like, well, that's what I write about.
Yeah.
And I found this fascinating family, but I was 3 weeks into writing it, and not even writing it, just researching it. Is this something I want to do? Are there some characters I want to follow? There are 200 passengers. Which are the 2 passengers worth following? When I stumbled on a headline that a shipwreck hunting crew had found the ship.
Just coincidentally right then at that time.
3 weeks into research. Boom.
Fantastic.
Boom.
I mean, how did that feel?
Chill bumps head
Yeah.
starting in your scalp, down
Yeah.
your neck. So I just dove in deep. It was a very research intensive, it was years, but it is a dual timeline where we follow a modern day woman who is curating an exhibit for the things they're finding at the bottom of the ocean. And then we follow 2 historical characters who are related, and they're related to the family that we follow. And the reason I chose them is because number one, the main character is based on a very real person and a very real family. And the family was intimately connected to the ship. Her brother was the owner, stockholder, and financier for the ship. And he had taken his wife, his 6 children, his niece, and his sister on this journey.
Mm.
So we follow his sister in the historical part of the story.
Let's just point out too that by choosing them, the
Mm-hmm.
stakes go up
Yes.
so high because of who they are. They're
Right.
not unrelated to this boat, to the
They're
ship.
they're intimately tied
Yeah.
to the boat, and they are intimately tied to the history of Savannah as a city.
Yeah. Yeah, which is so deep and rich to your heart too. And it
Yeah.
shows, and it shows in
Thank
the writing.
you. Thank you.
Yeah, so I would encourage anybody to go out and grab that right now. And can you tell us just like a one line or two about Once Upon a Wardrobe coming out in
Oh,
October?
I would love to.
You probably haven't talked
Um,
about this one too much
I
recently.
know. Can you see me looking up and to the right, which always
What's that
means
book
like, how do
about
I
again?
describe it? Right. Like, it comes out October 19th, and it is set in the year 1950 in Oxford, England, and Worcester,
Ooh.
England. And it is November 1950, which is the year that the book, The Lion, the Witch, and the
Oh,
Wardrobe came out.
one of my favorites.
Yes. And so a little boy named George is very ill, and his sister Meg is a student at Oxford University. And George is obsessed with The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe, as most of us are. And none of the other books are out yet, so there's not a whole Narnia world. And he asks his sister to find C.S. Lewis because he teaches at her college, and ask him, where did Narnia come from? And she doesn't want to because she's a math major and a physics major and a genius. She's a prodigy in mathematics and physics, but she does. She tracks down Lewis and says, where did Narnia come from? My brother needs to know.
Patti, it's a good thing I know your publicist because I'm going to start knocking on her door for an ARC so that I can review.
I can get you one. Don't you worry about that.
I'm also obsessed with C.S. Lewis. I had this strange thing about him when I was a kid that even though I was, 10 years old, I was reading Mere Christianity because I just loved his language and wanted to be with him. So like all of my spidey senses are tingling now. I just got to read that next.
Well, I wrote a novel called Becoming Mrs. Lewis.
No, I don't know this.
There.
Oh, I see it.
Is
gorgeous.
It's about his wife. It's about his wife, Joy Davidman.
So you are also obsessed. How did that obsession come to you? Is it
I
from
was just
Narnia?
laughing because when I give my speech, Joy, the story about his wife, Joy Davidman, came out 2.5 years ago. It came out in 2018.
Grabbing that as soon as we hang up.
Whenever I'm on tour about her, speaking about her, which I do a lot, because she's incredibly fascinating. She was an American poet, novelist. Is that I reading your Christianity when you were young, because when I was 12 years old, I picked up the Screw Tape Letters, and I don't recommend that anybody read the Screw Tape Letters when
I read them all.
Old.
I read it.
I grew up. I'm a preacher's kid. Yeah. So our house was covered in Lewis books. Yeah, you can see them all behind me right there.
So you just got that voice inside your head early, and it stuck.
Yeah.
Oh, that is so exciting. Okay, Patti, I know what I'm doing after we hang up. Is one clicking. So thank you so much for being here. Tell us where we can find you on the internet.
Oh, everywhere. Put in my name and you will find me.
Patti with an I.
Patti, Callahan, Callahan. And my website has loads of things on it. It has book club kits and photos. And for surviving Savannah, I have pictures of the dive and of the artifacts. And I have a book club kit that has the timeline of the night and all kinds of interesting things.
Very cool.
I'm pretty active on Instagram and Facebook. I'm not very active on Twitter. I'm not good at the Twitter.
You don't need to be. It's a garbage campfire.
I just can't. I get lost in it, and I don't know how to say anything in 40 words. I don't know. So I'm out there. I'm easy to find. So.
Patti, thank you so much for such a delightful conversation and for your writing.
You too.
It was wonderful talking to you.
To talk to you.
And I wish you happy writing.